The question that has been in my mind for 50 years is, why is the United States government suppressing research into certain medicines while at the same time allowing research into other medicines?
In addition to the costs of law enforcement and the lives ruined by the war on drugs, another major casualty has been scientific research into psychedelic substances.
It's almost mind-bending that we have a tiny bit of research being allowed in a country that's supposedly a democratic republic.
In the absence of much clinical research, we can do worse than to consult personal stories. A few years ago, Richard interviewed Marilyn Howell, a Harvard-trained biologist whose daughter took MDMA as part of her treatment for colon cancer. Mara had narrowly missed a clinical trial for MDMA, which would have allowed her to undergo the therapy legally, so Marilyn instead found an underground therapist with experience guiding patients like Mara with MDMA.
About 3 months before her death, and her first experience in many, many weeks without pain, with a sense of interest and curiosity and pleasure, even the beginnings of being able to talk about her cancer in a little bit more open way.
You're hearing a highly trained scientist, a Harvard-trained scientist, talk about the fact that her daughter was given just about every medicine known to modern scientists which did not relieve her daughter's pain that came from cancer until they administered MDMA, which did relieve the pain for the first time. Did I get that right, Marilyn?
You got it exactly right.
Mara had been experiencing abdominal pains, but the initial test for colon cancer had used a device that wasn't long enough, and a more invasive test, which only came later, yielded bad news.
It's a huge mass, and she needs surgery right away. And most frightening of all was the very suspicious-looking lymph nodes behind her aorta that he couldn't reach.
In addition to the pain from the surgeries and the chemotherapy, there was also the very near and almost certain fate that awaited her. The chemical cocktail of pharmaceuticals seemed to be slowly killing Mara without providing any hope or relief.
While we were there, she had a celiac nerve block procedure. What that means is they inject alcohol into the spinal nerve to kill it, hoping that that will also kill the pain. That didn't work, but it was horrific. They also tried an intrathecal trial. That's lacing a tube that goes just in towards the cerebrospinal fluid so that they can deliver medications more efficiently. That failed.
After experimenting with different psychedelics, including LSD and psilocybin, Mara found that MDMA provided the best relief.
What it did, from the perspective of her father and I looking at her, is it took away the convulsions and tics, the labored breathing, and she was just sleeping peacefully.
Sitting at Mara's bedside toward the very end of her life, Marilyn picked up Laura Huxley's This Timeless Moment, which contained a passage describing her husband, the famous author and psychedelic explorer Aldous Huxley, and his passing under the influence of LSD.
When a person is in that state, we often don't know if they can hear us, if they're conscious, but sometimes they're very much aware. She spoke about the importance of touch and the human voice in helping someone pass this time of loneliness onto the other side. And as I read that part, Mara, who had been asleep and thought perhaps she would never wake up,
Yes.
took her hand out from under the covers, reached across, put her hand in her father's palm, turned her head to look at him, had this expression of tremendous peace and joy, and took her last breath. It was her last gift to us to let us know that she was aware. We were there, we were accepting her, we were helping her on her passage, and that her passing was one of peace and love.
Marilyn, we're going to end there because that's the place to end, and I thank you so much for sharing your story. This is Dr. Marilyn Howell talking about Honor Thy Daughter, the story of Mara's passing under the influence of psychedelic medicine. Thank you so much, Marilyn.
Thank you, Richard.
Gentle listeners, we come to the end, and thank you for listening to today's broadcast of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, which is brought to you by our staff at KZ.
With Mara's story in mind, we can come back to the question of why some drugs are legal, like the pharmaceuticals she was having pumped directly into her body, while others, like MDMA, remain scheduled substances with no recognized medical use. How can we know whether Mara's case was just a fluke or not if we don't allow research? That's why the Psychepedia exists.
My purpose in bringing you this series on psychedelic medicine is to give you the most up-to-date information we have available on the little research that's going on in this country and around the world. I invite you to participate in this program in more ways than just listening. Go to SpeakPipe, it's a little icon. Click on and speak. Tell me a story. Tell me a story about your experience with psychedelic medicines. Go to iTunes when you have a chance and give us a rating. Become an ambassador for this program and tell your friends. This is Dr. Richard Miller reminding you that good health is worth fighting for, and it's essential for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
There's no way out, down and through the deeper, darker depths. Breathe in, let it out, or you won't make it out again. Only fear of dying makes you certain in your death. So don't hang on, just surrender, and you'll make